The game just turned his own name into the loudest part of a war Kendrick Lamar still refuses to even touch, and that is exactly why this feels uglier than regular rap drama. One man keeps throwing words, theories, stage speeches, and public explanations into the air. The other one won't even pick up the phone, and that silence is making every outburst land twice as hard. When a rapper starts battling another artist, old receipts, and his own public record at the same time, the room already knows who lost control. Before we get into it, like, subscribe, don't miss it. Trust me, this one gets ugly. In 2025 and rolling into 2026, Jayceon Taylor, better known as The Game, kept dragging Kendrick Lamar, Drake, The Pop-Out, and that old 100 record back into public conversation through interviews, podcast talk, Instagram behavior, and stage moments, while Kendrick kept doing what Kendrick does best, saying almost nothing and letting the silence speak for him. That's the whole trigger right there. This isn't one clean diss record and one clean response. This is a pattern. It's Game turning private resentment into public theater, while Dot stays unreachable. And once you see the pattern in order, man, it hits way different. The first thing that got me heated is this. People are acting like this behavior came out of nowhere when 50 Cent basically wrote the warning label on it back in 2005. He said Game was a great rapper, but not a good songwriter. Then went even further and said he says a lot of people's names for shock value, says things he doesn't mean and then takes them back. Sit with that for a second. That's not little shade tossed in passing. That's a diagnosis. That's somebody looking at the whole operating system and telling you where the glitch lives. And what bothers me is not even the insult, it's the accuracy that keeps surviving the years. Because once somebody brands you as a shock value talker, every future rant starts sounding less like passion and more like habit. Then 2011 gives you the pretty version of the story. Game is up there passing Kendrick the torch, telling him, "You got the torch, you better run with it because it's yours." Cool, respect. And Kendrick shows up on the Red album and absolutely bodies the city. So let's keep it fair. Game did have a real place in Kendrick's early runway. He was around, he put him on records, he helped put some eyeballs on him. Nobody honest has to erase that. But helping a younger artist get seen is not the same as owning the emotional rights to what happens after he becomes bigger than you. A lot of veterans can smile during the introduction. The real test hits when the younger guy doesn't just arrive, he separates. By 2012, you can already hear that separation scraping against Game's ego. XXL puts Dr. Dre and Kendrick Lamar on that cover with the caption about Dre bringing hip-hop its next big star, after Eminem, Snoop Dogg, and 50 Cent. And what does Game do? He immediately frames the omission as disrespect. He said it kind of pissed him off. And that right there is where the industry politics start breathing through the walls. Because that wasn't really about one magazine cover. That was about lineage. That was about reading the succession plan in public and noticing your name wasn't listed in the bloodline. That kind of thing stings different when your whole career has been wrapped around proximity to Dre, Aftermath, G-Unit, and West Coast royalty. That's why The Doctor's Advocate matters more than people think. Game didn't just drop an album with a cool title. He explained the title. He made a point of saying advocate means to speak on behalf of, someone he was advocating for the doctor. That is not random branding. That is a man trying to keep one foot inside an institution that already looked like it was moving without him.
He wanted the world to know Dre mattered to him. Dre saved his life. Dre was still the house he came from. But then that same album ends up with no Dr. Dre production, even though Game said it would. That is the kind of industry silence that says more than a press release ever could. Nobody has to scream, "You're out," when they can just stop opening the inner doors. And now we get to the part where Game keeps rewriting his own memory depending on what version flatters him most. In newer talk, he says he always knew what Kendrick would become. He says he wanted to sign him. He talks like he saw the whole future before the future showed up. But then an older clip surfaces where he says the exact thing a visionary is not supposed to say. He remembered telling K-Dot that K-Dot wasn't going to work and he should change his name to Kendrick. That's already messy. Then Kendrick's own 2009 Last Real Guy Alive gets thrown into the mix, where Kendrick says he finally heard what Game said about his mixtape and he said he didn't like it. Man, which one is it? The chosen one you recognized before the world did, or the kid whose early work you didn't believe in? You don't get to hold both trophies at once. That contradiction isn't some little footnote. That contradiction is the whole smoke cloud. And once that smoke cloud builds, every later claim starts looking shaky too. That's why it mattered when 2T's called the whole "I wanted to sign Kendrick" narrative straight cap. That's why it mattered when Stat Quo started explaining that Game had this habit of hearing Kendrick disses when Kendrick wasn't even talking to him. Because at that point, the issue stops being bars and starts being perception. If a man keeps thinking every shadow in the room is his enemy, eventually the problem ain't the shadows, it's his eyes. Competitive energy is one thing, that comes with rap. But when every major cultural moment gets filtered through your private insecurity, now you're not reading the game anymore. The game is reading you. Listen, before we go deeper, pull back for a second. The cleanest way to understand this whole mess is to watch when the phone line dies. Because by 2015, the board changes completely. Drake and Kendrick had already been exchanging that cold, slick, subliminal tension for a while. Then Game drops an album where Kendrick is on it, Drake is on it, and Drake throws that line about having all of Kendrick's fans if he stayed on his conscious stuff. Fine, that alone is messy enough. But then Game brings Drake to Compton to shoot the video for 100, and Stat Quo says Top Dawg called him to make something very clear. After that video that dude shot in Compton, that changed everything. There it is. There's your hinge. Not a vague hurt feeling, not a fan theory, a line in the sand from the camp itself. You don't host somebody in a rival Cold War on another man's home turf, let a slick shot float on the same project, and then act shocked when the access gets cut off. That's not confusion, that's consequences. And the date on that video carries a little extra sting too. June 16, 2015. Same 616 that later feels louder when Kendrick drops 616 in LA in 2024. I'm not gonna stand here and fake some secret code I can't prove beyond what's in front of us. I'm not doing internet numerology theater. But I am saying hip-hop notices dates, and artists notice dates, and camps notice dates. If Top Dawg is tying that Compton video to the moment communication changed, then that date isn't wallpaper, that's the lock turning. What makes it worse is how Game keeps trying to spin the pop-out situation like every explanation can live together at once. First, he says he sat it out on purpose because there were people there he didn't mess with and he didn't want some confrontation breaking out during a major West Coast moment. Cool.
If that's the reason, say that plainly and stand on it. But then the obvious question hits, why not go by yourself? And his answer is, what you mean come by myself? I'm not doing that, bro. Then later in that same lane, he says, I could just go. Can't nobody tell Game I can't go nowhere I want to go in LA. Nah, those are two different speeches wearing the same jacket. Either you stayed home because you wanted peace, or you were proving nobody had the power to keep you out. But when both stories got to survive in the same interview ecosystem, one of them is costume jewelry. And that costume jewelry keeps showing up. That's why the paranoia piece matters. Stat Quo says Game thought Kendrick might have been dissing him back on The Heart Part 4. Then he says Game heard I See Dead People on Not Like Us and took that as a possible nod to himself too. You see what I'm saying? Once a rapper starts seeing personal smoke in every major record, every intro, every phrase, now silence becomes torture. Because silence doesn't give you a clean argument to fight. You can't quote it properly. You can't rebut it cleanly. You can only react to what you think it means. And that's where guys start defeating themselves in public. At the same time, his Drake loyalty is not exactly hiding under the couch. The FaceTime during Drink Champs, the Drake is my brother talk, the way he talks about Drake looking out for his kids at shows, the voicemail energy on his album, the diamond profile picture while the Iceman orbit starts buzzing. Even those written reviews where he talks up records and then caps it off with that little I'll see you guys when Iceman drops type energy. That is not fence sitting, that is alignment. So when he later says any little friction with Kendrick or Top is because Drake is his friend, man, that doesn't crack the case open for me, that confirms it. The public behavior already told us where his weight was leaning. And that matters because this whole story is not just about friendship, it's about choosing sides in a structure where sides have consequences. You can't be Drake adjacent in public, throw jabs around the edges, lean into that whole orbit, then turn around and act confused that the TDE side isn't opening the door with a warm towel and a fruit tray. That's not how these camps move, especially not after a hometown video, especially not after those old subliminals, especially not after the pop-out, especially not after the Not Like Us moment made unity itself part of Kendrick's whole public symbolism. Now put all that next to the 50 Cent pattern and tell me it's not the same wound in a different body. In 2025, Game is on stage yelling F 50 Cent. By 2026, he's shouting out 50,
performing 50's full verses on Hate It or Love It and How We Do, and stopping the show to press a fan for not rapping 50's part like this is 50 karaoke night hosted by the Game himself. I'm sorry, man, but that is exactly what 50 was talking about 20 years ago. Say it loud, walk it back, restart it, repackage it, perform the contradiction like it's part of the show. That doesn't make him untalented. That's what makes it frustrating, because the bars are real, the catalog is real, the self-sabotage is real too. And here's the clue that keeps doing the heaviest lifting for me. Access. Not disses, not magazine covers, not even that Compton video by itself. Access. Stat Quo practically spells it out when he explains that Kendrick just doesn't get on the phone with everybody, that he likes being able to cut access off, the same way Dre can disappear, the same way Eminem can disappear. Then he says Game felt like because he was one of Kendrick's inspirations, he should always have that access. Tiny word, huge reveal. Should. That's the whole nerve exposed. Because once a veteran starts believing mentorship bought him permanent emotional clearance, every unanswered call starts feeling like treason instead of boundary. That's why Kendrick's silence hits so hard. Silence is not just silence here. Silence is rank. Silence is discretion. Silence is the power to decide who gets explanation and who gets distance. Dre does it. Kendrick does it. According to Stat Quo, even that whole Vice conversation pointed to Kendrick enjoying the fact that people can't just reach him whenever they want. So when Game keeps treating the lack of response like a mystery that must be solved publicly, he's basically admitting the door matters to him more than he wants people to know. And the more he admits that, the more the silence beats him. You can hear that pain in the way he keeps reciting names too. Dre know what it is. Top know what it is. Kendrick know what it is. Mustard know what it is. Ty Dolla $ign know what it is. Snoop know what it is. That's not just chest beating. That sounds like a man submitting his own resume out loud because the institution didn't call his name when the room got dressed up. Even that wild claim about being offered half of TDE lands less like flex and more like grief once you place it next to everything else. Because if you really had that kind of potential seat at the table and now you're outside narrating how much you once mattered, then yeah, that sting is going to leak into every conversation. And the excuse about Kendrick working with 50 through power, that one folded on contact for me, because Game himself has been bouncing between peace with 50 and war with 50 for years. One minute, TMZ is talking about them burying the hatchet in a strip club. Another minute, we're back to stage shots and hostile energy. So how are you going to charge Kendrick a loyalty fee on behalf of a feud you personally keep reopening and repackaging? Nah, that's not principle. That's movable accounting. That's selective outrage with a microphone. I'm going to say something a lot of people won't like, but I'd be fake if I dodged it. This is not really about Kendrick Lamar being scared of the Game. This is not even mainly about old hurt feelings. This is about industry politics deciding who is trusted with the keys and who is treated like a fire hazard with platinum records. Because once you strip away the fan noise, the gossip voice, the stage yelling, the old cosigns, and the endless "I was there first" energy, the bigger picture is simple. The people at the top of rap institutions don't just reward talent, they reward control. They reward discretion. They reward the artist who knows when to weaponize silence, when to move in the background, when to keep the feud inside the music, and when to avoid turning every bruise into an internet parade. That is why Kendrick's path kept climbing and Game's path kept getting noisier. Not because Game lacked ability, not because the catalog is weak, but because the machine will always prefer a star it can trust over a star it constantly has to manage. That's the real industry politics layer hiding under all this. Game keeps approaching these relationships like contribution should equal permanent access, permanent reverence, permanent open door status. But the industry doesn't run on gratitude, it runs on risk assessment. It asks one cold question over and over. When this person feels slighted, do they tighten up and move smarter, or do they go public and make everybody else clean it up later? And once too many powerful people decide they know that answer, man, whole invitations disappear without anybody ever saying your name out loud. That's why the missed rooms matter. That pop-out absence, that Dre distance, that Hollywood Walk of Fame moment where his name doesn't get centered the way he thinks it should.
Those are not random accidents floating in separate boxes. Those are institutional tales. That's the industry quietly classifying people. One artist becomes legacy plus reliability. Another artist becomes legacy plus volatility. Same talent conversation? No. Different trust conversation? Absolutely. And here's the line a lot of fans on both sides are gonna hate hearing. This isn't about Kendrick ducking game. It's about the industry choosing the artist it can trust over the artist it has to contain. That's the whole wound. Game wants acknowledgement not just as a rapper, but as a foundational West Coast force whose influence should automatically buy him continued proximity to Dre, to Top, to Kendrick, to the biggest moments, to the cultural ceremonies. And honestly, I get why he feels that way. His catalog is too strong to be talked about like he's some random footnote. But the machine is not evaluating him on bars alone anymore. It's evaluating the whole package. The public volatility, the flip-flopping around 50, the Drake orbit, the pop-out explanations, the call me back energy, the constant need to restate what he contributed. All of that becomes part of the file. And when that file gets too thick, people stop arguing with you in public. They just stop calling. That's colder. That hurts more. And that's exactly why his anger keeps sounding less like pure competition and more like somebody who knows he lost a level of access he thought was guaranteed. Labels don't hand the vault code to the loudest uncle in the room. Camps don't make the most guarded artist in the building explain himself to the one person most likely to turn the explanation into a press run. That's not how power protects itself. The dirtiest part is that Game keeps proving the point every time he tries to fight the point. Every new public explanation makes the silence look smarter. Every new contradiction makes the old warnings sound wiser. Every I could've and they know what it is and I was there first speech makes the gate look more permanently shut. And once that happens, the conversation stops being why won't Kendrick answer and becomes why does Game keep needing the answer in public? That's the read. Take it or leave it. So now let's play the tape forward, because if this keeps moving, Game's got 3 possible moves on the board, and none of them end clean unless he changes the way he plays. Move 1 is pressure through public talk. He's gonna keep nudging Kendrick through interviews, stage rants, slick comments, and competitive talk, hoping Dot finally answers just to clear the air or swing back. That move will fail if it stays verbal, because silence is a terrible opponent for a man who needs visible contact. The more he talks into that vacuum, the more it looks like he's trying to summon relevance through reaction. And the tale to look for will be simple. If the next major conversation still includes "I got love for Kendrick," followed by another complaint about distance, then he's still trying to force a response instead of earning one. Move 2 is full Drake orbit commitment. He'll lean harder into that brother language, lean harder into side picking, maybe keep signaling around that Iceman energy, maybe keep presenting himself like the loud West Coast witness for Drake's side of history. That move will fail in the long game too, because it turns him from principal into accessory. Even if it gets attention, it shrinks his room. He stops being the Game with his own giant catalog and starts looking like a very talented amplifier for somebody else's war. The signal to keep an eye on there will be whether his next wave of public energy centers his own music or whether it keeps circling Drake, Kendrick, and unresolved camp politics. Move 3 is the only move with real upside, and even this one comes with bruises.
He could lock everything back inside the music. No extra speeches, no history corrections, no public pleading, no they know what it is resume recitals. Just bars, just records, just a clean competitive reset where he says what he needs to say on wax and lets the culture judge the craft instead of the chaos. If he does that, he might actually steal a round of attention. Not the whole war, not the whole legacy rewrite, but a round? Maybe. Because unlike a lot of people in these conversations, Game can really rap. The tell there will be whether the next serious move sounds like focused music or sounds like another interview disguised as a verse. But even if he makes the smartest move of the 3, the hard truth is this: the access problem still won't be fixed by noise. Kendrick still won't be forced into a phone call by frustration. Dre still won't turn back into public reassurance just because the pressure gets louder. Those guys move like men who value perimeter control more than emotional maintenance. So if Game keeps playing for acknowledgement instead of position, he'll keep losing on a board he doesn't even realize changed years ago.
And if Kendrick does answer it all, it'll probably be the way he always answers when something actually matters to him. Through the music, on his timing, without a press conference, without a 10-minute explanation, without giving the other side the satisfaction of feeling included in the process. That's what makes this matchup so cruel for Game. The one thing he seems want most is direct engagement, and direct engagement is the one thing this opponent almost never gives for free. So yeah, 3 moves: public pressure, Drake alignment, music-only reset. The first move makes him look thirstier. The second move makes him look smaller. The third move gives him his only real lane back to dignity, but only if he drops the need to narrate every emotion before the beat drops. That's the gamble. That's the board. And if he plays it wrong again, the silence around him is only going to sound louder. Watch the smoke settle. You'll see who's still standing. Thanks for watching Celebsphere. If you enjoyed uncovering the real story, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss when we expose what everyone else is too scared to say. Ring that bell for notifications. And if you want more truth bombs like this, click on one of these videos next. Trust me, you'll want to see what we found.